I'm Chosen Architect, and this is my modded adventure. Now, I've got to let you know this. There has been a major update for this pack. I have pushed out a humongous change. There was a lot of change underneath the hood that you won't really notice, but it's definitely performance-based. And we also had several mods that were added and also updated. One being Ars Nouveau Elemental, which is a very, very nice addition. And then we also have Starbunklemania, which was another huge addition. And then Rats is getting updated as well, which is pretty cool. Now, some other amazing changes. Well, within Ars Nouveau and the G-Ore, which is a way you can generate resources in this pack, which we haven't necessarily gone over just yet. There's now new ways to be able to find the ores using the dowsing rods, but it's associated directly with the Geo-Ores addition for Ars Nouveau. So it's gonna be pretty cool. Basically, it's like finding amethyst underground, but they are ore-based. And if you remember us in the prior episode, finding the amethyst geode with the dowsing rod, as you can see, there's now a dowsing rod for each of the types of Geo-Ore, which is really, really nice because it would be quite difficult to find these just out on your own. Now, these things are not the cheapest, however, as they do require a Wildland Tribute and also Animania Essence, which is from Ars Elemental, which is brand new. Now, you may be wondering, what's on the list of to-dos for today? Well, my first list of to-dos is going to be getting the storage lectern accessible wirelessly. That is going to be 100% important. Now, this won't be cross-dimensional, but it will be accessible throughout the entire overworld, which will be pretty nice, so long as this area is chunk loaded, which we'll go over here in a moment. And then next is going to be upgrading our mana battery. I want to be able to generate way more source than we're currently generating, so we can use it throughout our world. Now, to do that, it's going to take some integration from the Create mod, which we will tap into shortly. But let's first work on this storage lectern. So how exactly can I go about accessing this thing without being here to access it? Well, there's actually some things provided, but it's not explicitly mentioned. And we could go ahead and access it, but we have to have some kind of knowledge of how the spells work. So let me explain how this is going to function. Now, currently there are these things in here called scry crystals. Also, there is an enchanter's eye, which is made from a scry crystal. And there's all these things about scry, right? And what does scry do? It lets you sort of look into something else, somewhere else. Now, the scry crystal allows you to sort of use spells through it or see through it. And then, of course, you have the Tablet of Scrying, which also has that scry in the name. And what it allows you to do is create a ritual that allows you to place and augment items, place items into the ritual that you want to be able to find in your world, such as ore, right? It's great. It's a great use for being able to find like specific ore. You just put that ore in the ritual, activate it, and it gives you this sort of effect that you can see things in world. We may use that later on, but let's dive even deeper into these scries and what exactly they do and how we're going to use them. So if we travel all the way back up to the top here, we should be able to access our arcane platform. And I want to go ahead and make that enchanter's eye, because this is what's going to allow us to essentially, which we're going to need 4 of each of these, by the way, 4 ender pearls and 4 blaze powder. We are going to essentially be able to inscribe a spell onto this and then link it to a scry crystal that's in the world. These are what stay physically in the world. You can see, you can place them. And then once that's linked, we can then use that spell from the enchanter's eye, and it will go through this crystal, and it basically allows for wireless spells. It's pretty darn cool. And honestly, not too hard to obtain either. So we just need to click this and we'll get that made. This is very, very useful. And if you're creative enough, well, you can come up with some really interesting ideas. But one of my favorite ways of utilizing this is by simply accessing our storage. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to need an interaction spell. And I don't think I have it learned yet. So let's go ahead and go into tier 1. By the way, as you can see, ours got updated. So now we can see the spells that we have already unlocked. And a little bonus note here, the more spells you unlock, the more mana or source that you will obtain overall. Like it'll increase the amount you have total. So just something to definitely keep in mind. Now I think the interact spell, let's go to all. The interaction spell is a tier 1 spell, and it does seem that we already have it. So I guess I was wrong there. Do we have it? It does have a hand. Oh no. So the ones that are highlighted are the ones that we have, and the ones that we don't are the ones that are grayed out. So interact spell, and we'll go ahead and accept that. And we'll see, do we have all the items? I love that it just automatically pulls from here. Oh, that is so nice. But it does seem like we're missing like a pressure plate and a few other things. After crafting those simple things, we'll be able to get this spell. And this is yet again, just like what we did with our bows and our enchanter's wand, we're going to place this on the table and we want to inscribe it with something. And I'm sort of thinking we could do a bunch of different ways of using this interaction spell. But if we want to set this, for example, at like a distance or what have you, it might be best to do a projectile, but we could just do a straight touch, I think. And if we do touch, we could probably put it right back behind here, or we could attach it to this. If we do a spell, we could have it shoot from the roof down on here, so long as there's not anything in the way, such as a bookworm or anything like that, which could pose a little bit of a problem if they do get away or get in the way. Now, we just need to find basically a slot that we want to mess with, and this is an empty slot. So let's go ahead and try that project, and then we're going to do, as soon as we learn our glyph, we're going to do a projectile, and then, let's see, projectile and then interact. And that's as simple as it needs to get. We don't need to name it or anything like that. We just simply need to shift right click on the table, and now we have an enchanter's eye that is inscribed with a spell. Now, by default, as you can see, there's nothing that we can do with it. It says no scry in the offhand. Now, I guess this can apply to us. It does say no position, use this on a scry crystal, or hold the scryer scroll in the offhand. So the scryer scroll is a little bit different, as it does allow you to set the scry crystals, and that would kind of allow you to interact with only the scry that you want to interact with. It's a little bit more advanced, but for right now, let's go ahead and just place this here, and then we'll shift right click on that scry crystal. And now, whenever I access this, you'll see that this should shoot a spell, and then it hit the target. And that target that it's interacting with is the storage lectern. And this allows me to open up the interaction, the table there. This is so nice. And yes, it does work with pretty much anything. Now let's talk about those parchments, because this is where things can get very, very powerful. So right now we have this interaction that is happening right here. I think we might be able to override this by putting a spell parchment in our offhand, or not a spell parchment, but a scryer parchment. So to be able to do this, let's say we wanted to access this barrel. So I'm going to put a scry crystal right here, and then I'm going to shift right click a blank parchment on it. That's going to give me a scryer scroll. Now, inside of this barrel, we should be able to access that by putting this in our offhand and then using the enchanter's eye. And as you see, it overrides the base functionality of accessing our inventory. And that allows us to access this barrel. So I can name this parchment something like, let's see, the press output, right? And then when we access this, we now can just pull up the barrel. So what if I wanted to quickly smelt something, right? I could have a scry crystal on the generator, on the alloy smelter, and I could just simply access that inventory interface. And then if I wanted to pull the ingredients out, I could just have one that's on set to the output, and then just change the name and just keep swapping my offhand. And this might become very useful in the future. What if we have a setup that we go, you know what? I need a bucket of lava, right? And we go ahead and we just put a bucket inside of the inventory that we open with the scry crystal, and then it outputs a full bucket for us. That would be very, very handy. Now let's talk about chunk loading. Now it is mentioned in the quest book, so if you have read the quest book, you will have an understanding of this. But all you have to do is click the FTB Chunks Claim Manager, and then just select the area that you want to claim. And then if you hold down Shift and reselect, you can see these like checkerboard pattern here, or the stripe patterns. Those mean those chunks are going to be forced chunk loaded, meaning that if you leave this area, it's going to stay running regardless. which means we should be able to use our base enchanter's eye no matter how far away we are. Let's just say we are like several thousand blocks out, right? We should still be able to access our storage with our scry crystal. And as you see, perfect. We now have access. Yes, it is very powerful, but I can tell you that the limitations come whenever you try to do this cross-dimensionally. It gets a little bit more complicated. Now, I'm not going to delve into that right now, as I do think it is for a later time, being able to wirelessly access this cross-dimensionally. I still feel like that's a good limitation for myself to have, and it is quite the setup in order to get it going, as you're going to need portals from, well, Ars Nouveau. So with all that, what's the next task at hand? And I think I want to get lava from the Nether and be able to store it here in the overworld. This is going to be super helpful for getting our source production set up, because today we're also setting up probably one of the most overpowered source production methods that is available, in my opinion. Now, for this particular setup, we need to get into a little bit more of create. And so I'm going to be making some copper material, some copper casings. And this right here is some super nice stuff. It's very pretty, actually. I really like the way the copper looks on this. But this is going to allow us to create a pump. So there's this thing called a hose pulley, and this hose pulley has the ability for us to pump fluids. But notice it needed some copper, so that's why I did set aside some copper. And remember, I did set that scry over here. I did go ahead and remove it, but yeah, there we go. We have some copper sheets, as we kind of alluded to earlier. Now, this is another very powerful item that Create adds, and it's so simple too, as there's not much really needed in order to technically use it. Now, in order to interface, as in automatically pull out of the hose pulley and to put it into something, we're gonna need some middleman, whether that's a pipe or something like that. I think what I wanna use is a pressurized tank from Ender.io. So you could use pipes from Create, but you're gonna need mechanical stress for that. But you could just technically use something that can also pull. And one of those things is, believe it or not, the tank from Ender.io. So we are going to need some fused quartz for this, which requires 4 quartz, making sure it's set to alloy mode. And that is going to give us the fused quartz we need. And so I'll take this and head back. I love that we can just dash so fast through all of this. It's so good. But yes, this right here, if you go back to Ender.io and tank, we should have access to, yes, a pressurized tank, which, as you can see, requires some dark steel. But it's not all that much. You need 6 in order to make the bars. And so 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in total to make this really nice tank. Now, none of this works unless we have a way to get the lava from the Nether, which is where we're going to pump it, and get it into the overworld. How am I going to do that? Well, we could just use Ender tanks. Now, these things are a little bit on the expensive side, as we are going to need 2 of them. And they do require blaze rods, so we'll definitely need to keep that in our head. And ooh, it looks like we completed part of a quest. So yeah, I think this is a part of the quality of life, as you see right here. And of course, once you get an ender chest, you get all of these little goodies as a part of this. Now, the way that these ender tanks work is basically they're connected tanks. So this tank is linked to this tank based on its color code. Now, if I change this color here to make it orange, now this is different from this tank. So whatever fluid was in this would now not be in this one, and vice versa. But if I go ahead and make them both the same, now they're both back linked together. And I want this to have some orange associated with it, since we are going to be using this to transfer lava. Now, can my spell break this? Yes, amplify. You are going to need it. It is obsidian level. So there we go. We now have ender tanks. And we have just about everything ready to go. I went ahead and made a hand crank, as that's how we're going to lower the pulley down. Now that I'm in the Nether, of course, it's very, very dangerous here, but look at all this lava. So we should be able to tap into some of this lava and do it relatively safe from this little area over here. So I think if I go ahead and go to my break spell, and we make sure this is set to projectile and create, I then want to go ahead and make a little bit of a tunnel that leads down, and hopefully we can get a tunnel that leads directly into the lava, just like that. Oh, this is perfect. So the only other thing we're going to need to do, let me go ahead and just grab a regular block. Let's go ahead and place our hose pulley, and I'm going to place it right here. And this is going to be the spot where the fluid comes out. And then the other side is going to be where we put the hand crank. So let's go ahead and put the hand crank on. And then I typically like to be able to see when this pulley is going to stop functioning. And so to be able to see it visually, I can go ahead and look here. And we just need to make sure we're spinning it the right direction. If you just right click, it's going to go and it looks like it's the wrong way. So if I hold shift, I can spin it in the other direction. And now I can see the hose pulley going down. And I want to continue doing this all the way until it stops, just to be safe. Now, while I'm going through this, let's talk about some best practices. So when you are setting up things like this or machines in general in modded Minecraft, it's usually a good idea to make sure you're not on an intersecting chunk. Now, things are bound to happen, but if you hit F3G, you can usually see the chunk bounds. And notice right here, I'm not on a intersecting chunk. So let's just imagine for a moment that this was over a little bit more. And let's say I had the hose pulley right here, and then on this side, I was going to end up putting the tank. Well, you have it on an intersecting chunk, meaning now you're going to need 2 chunks to be loaded instead of just 1. And there could be potential issues later on if, let's say, they weren't loaded. So yeah, it's usually best practice to put that into play. Yeah, again, F3G to show the chunk bounds. It's a really nice thing, a really good habit to definitely keep in mind. So how are we going to get this fluid? So now we have it lowered down, and we should now have access to infinite lava. Doesn't say it just yet. If we had our glasses on, it would give us a little bit more information. But being that it's this much, you need 10,000 source blocks of lava in order for it to be considered infinite. And I think that goes for any fluid that the hose pulley is interacting with. So yes, you could make an infinite source of water, even though that would be pretty redundant considering we have a sink. But you could use any other fluid potentially to do that as well. So how are we going to interact with this? So the pressurized tank has a config, and we should be able to set this to pull. And let's see, is that going to work? And it is. It's not super fast, but it is pulling the lava in at an okay rate. And that's going to be more than enough for what we're going to be working on here in the future. Later on, there may be faster ways for us to interact with this. I think another faster way may be to use industrial foregoing. But for right now, this is working out pretty good. And we need to transfer that into an ender tank. So we place the tank down over here. We can then tell this to send, so push into this ender tank, and this should start to fill up with lava over time. I think we might have to turn this on its side. I don't remember if this is side specific or not. Let's see. If I put it this way, does it work? Yes. So yeah, you have to fill this from that way. I guess we could also put it on the top and then remove this side as well. That could be another thing we could do. So let's go ahead and remove this. And then on the top, we'll set that to push. And that looks a little bit cleaner. And there we go. So we have some storage. It's going to be storing, of course, lava. And this is also going to store lava. And all in all, we now have infinite lava. And we can send this to our base. Now, one last thing. I cannot forget, I've got to chunk load this little area. And now it should work when we're not here. Now I'm thinking this is going to be most fitting when we go to set up our source. Inside of here, which is a spot that I have not yet shown, is the interior of our little smokestack. And I'm thinking source production in here might be very fitting considering we're going to be utilizing lava. So without further ado, let's go ahead and sort of decorate this little area. And I'm thinking we can line up some source jars that are going to be stacked up on the wall. And then we can use some sort of like trapdoor, for example, maybe here, and then use fence to make this look nice and connected. I think that would be pretty good. And this is going to be basically a source battery is ultimately what I want this whole thing to be turned into. Now, here's basically the idea in a nutshell. So we'll use volcanic source links, and the way that these volcanic source links are going to work are they're going to consume lava buckets from this arcane platform, or just a arcane platform. And I think having it in the middle here should be fine. And I think these should be able to reach. Now, the only way to be able to tell that is, so, for example, let's grab some charcoal because you can use burnable solid fuels in here as well. We should be able to test this out by placing charcoal in here. Will these consume, or do they need to be right next to it? See, they might need to be right next to it in order for them to work. Let's go ahead and just test that out. Well, I place that here. As you can see, they do need to be right next to it. So what we could do instead, which this might look pretty cool, is to place this in the floor. So instead of the way that we have it set up, I can't get this to break because it's placing it on here. We may like hide this in the ground, and that would be pretty cool. And having some glass above this. I think this is going to look very, very nice once this is all done. So they'll be in the floor, and then we'll have a layer of glass, and it can definitely send this source through glass. So we shouldn't have a problem there. But how am I going to go about getting lava buckets onto this platform? And we have ourselves an inner tank, and this is why we set up all of that lava. So let's go ahead and figure out a simple solution to that problem. And we should be able to do all of this with modular routers. Yet again, modular routers is showing up and really showing off because it has some cool things that it can do. For example, if we place our inner tank down here, I believe that this should be able to interact with this tank. And now if we go ahead and pull out a bucket, I think if we right click a bucket on here, notice that it fills with lava. And then if we put that on here, it gets consumed. So all we need to do is set up a way to interact with a lava bucket, right? So on our interaction, which is an activator module, we want to set this to the down, and then all of this should be fine. You can change whether it's going to punch or right click, but we should be able to just simply right click it with a bucket. And we need to specify on the whitelist to whitelist only an empty bucket, because we only want it to try and send a empty bucket in there. So if I do this, that should fill up just like that. That's perfect. But now we need to basically send this bucket that is full into the platform. And then we also need to pull the bucket back into the modular router. And that's where a sender and a puller module is going to come into play. So basically, if we're going to send, we need to make sure we're sending a full lava bucket. So let's grab one of those. And so on the sender module, we're going to send up, and we're going to make sure to send a full lava bucket, and then make sure this is whitelisted yet again. Then we need to make sure we only pull back into our buffer an empty bucket. So it's as simple as saying pull from the up whitelist, and then make sure we are only using an empty bucket. And honestly, that's basically it. Now I do want to arrange these, because the way this modular router works is it will go to this slot first, then perform this, and so on and so forth down the line. And of course, if there's no slot for it to roll back to, or nothing, no module, it's just going to roll back to the beginning. So in this case, we need to think of it this way. We want it to pull an empty bucket first. That's our first task. So we want to pull the empty bucket, and then we want to have that bucket to fill. And then we want to send that bucket and then loop back around. Once there is a bucket to pull, it should pull it back. And if you notice, this is going to constantly start working. And what that's going to do is allow our volcanic source links to work non-stop, which in my opinion is very, very powerful. Now, one way to make this even more powerful is to add more volcanic source links and then just speed up our modular router. And this can get quite interesting after a while. Notice it's going to start filling all of our containers. Now I've covered it with some glass, and this is going to produce a very nice mana battery. Now I'm not sure exactly what the range is for these links, but they should be able to reach up here, but they might not. I'll be able to find out once these are available, because I'm not quite sure what the range is. Maybe 2 blocks? Nope, it does seem like it is reaching. So it must have quite the range. I wonder if it can even reach this one. Now that I have all of this source being produced, and it's being produced very fast, we can now call this our source battery. Now the way to move this stuff around more effectively is going to be to use sort of splitters here. We're going to use source relays and then splitters. And what I want to do is have some like towers that run throughout this area that allow me to send the source from location to location. Later on, we'll have a way to do it wirelessly, where we can send from one node to another, and it doesn't have to actually go through the world as sort of a projectile. Yeah, but that requires us to go to the end. And for right now, we have not done that. So I'm thinking going ahead and placing this in here, I'm going to use a source gem block because I think it looks really nice. And then I'm going to use a splitter. And then we just need to simply connect all of these up by doing this to that splitter so that way it can accept mana from all of these jars. Mana, source, I don't know, I get it all confused. You can thank Botania for that. But yes, so I'm going to get all of them done. And we should be able to, by the way, see what we're hooked to. I think by clicking this once, and you can see when we're clicked, we get a representation of what's there. And then of course, clicking again, we'll go ahead and disconnect those and allows us to see what we have connected to this and what we have not. Now, I want to start moving the mana around from this source splitter and of course, get everything moved over here and start to send it throughout the base. So I made this little platform here, or this little pillar, and the idea is to use glowstone to place there, and that is going to illuminate the source gem block, giving it light at night, which I think is going to look kind of nice. As you can see, right, it's pretty cool. And then we're going to place the source relays. Now, these look kind of awkward because they're so small in comparison to all of the other blocks. So what I really want to do with this is I want to actually cover this up and make it look like the gem block is how we are transferring. So once this is all covered in place, notice it actually doesn't look half bad. It looks pretty darn cool. And then we just need to simply link this to that place. So we right click to set that position, and then we are going to click here, and notice this is now taking from that splitter that's going to be connected to everything. So the way I'm going to be connecting these up is I'm going to connect from here into this, which this one is going to be a splitter, so that way I can send to multiple locations. But I do want to use this to send source over here, which is eventually powering, essentially powering our mob farm. Now, I can do that by linking this. Now, I'm going to need to kind of go back and forth. I did remove my flight and everything because I want to set that up somewhere else. But yeah, I should be able to just go to the node, right click the node, and then close this up, and then just move on to the next one, so on and so forth, and align myself here. And now I should be sending to this. And because of the relay, we can send to this one, but also we could send to others eventually. That is the nice part about using splitters instead of your standard relay, because a standard relay only accepts one insert and then one export. So now I can send to that. So it's taking from that location. And when I click this one, and then I'm just going to send to this relay that's in here, except this time, this is going to go into this. But what I want to do instead of what it's currently doing, I think, no, this actually should be just fine. I don't need it filling these source jars. What I want is it taking in source so that way it can send and keep this jar filled, in which it's doing. So now with all of that set up, just take a look at this beauty. So we have all of these being sent around, and it's nice to see floating through the air all of our hard work. So with that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and hopefully you learned something new. And I can't wait for the next episode as we put some of this to good use and also expand on other functionality throughout our base. Oh, I'm really enjoying this Let's Play, and I hope you guys are too. And of course, the best way to show that is by clicking that subscribe button and or giving this video a huge thumbs up. And of course, maybe leave something down in the comments below, just to, tickle that algorithm a little bit. Now, I also want to give a huge shout out to the supporter of today's video, and that is going to go out to New Thanos. Thank you so very much for your amazing support, by the way, over on the Discord, becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Thank you guys so very much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And of course, as always, thanks for watching. Bye!